apply rhythm to my writing so often that I don't think like so much like other guitar players.
Yeah. So I know everybody asks you about Friday night in San Francisco project. Uh, Me too. I want to ask you about this excellent project. You
Yeah,
live with this project
it
in the years
was.
of dictatorship
Yeah,
in Romania. It was like with Paco de Lucia
in
and
that world,
John Bonham.
in that world, it was a very important record, like Sergeant Pepper was for the Beatles.
Yeah, of course.
It just came together. It can never happen again. And the same thing with Friday Night. We three came together. We were at the top of our, let's say, popularity and the top of our technical abilities. And we were really at the top of the technical abilities because we played for 2 months every night. It was the
Oh,
first tour, and the way the tour was structured, we played just about every night. And at the very end of the 2 months, we also recorded the whole tour. But the last two shows, we were at the best form of conversation,
yeah,
interplay.
interpret.
Okay, now that interplay was a very high level because we were playing for 2 months, so we chops were great, you know, uh, and captured very well, and that record sold 7 million records easy. Yeah, something maybe more. We will never know the true figure, but everyone knows this record all over the world. We recorded 2 nights, so we have a Friday night and a Saturday night, and I have the Saturday night in my studio.
Mm-hmm.
Someday, maybe it'll come out
It was an
because we have more music. We have enough for another record.
excellent project.
Yeah,
I think all the planet is
the whole planet knows, and everybody waits for Mediterranean Sundance and the shows. No matter what
Barbara
new music I
Sgarbo
have,
from Egberto Gismonti. It was,
I love Gismonti.
I love it.
I love Gismonti. I know him very well. Love him. Love Ralph Towner. You know, great.
You think it's Cordona, Don Cherry, Nana Vasconcelos.
I know the records.
So,
Yeah, yeah,
very nice.
yeah.
So, tell me about your experience with Frank Zappa. It's one of
Well, I was
the
home
biggest
in.
guys in this world.
I was watching television in New Jersey in my home. I was living alone at the time, and I was lying on the couch, and my phone rings before cell phones. Pick up the phone. Hello? Hi, Al. This is Frank Zappa here. And I knew his voice.
Yes, it's
I said, Frank Zappa? Yeah, hi, Al. I'm in Washington, D.C. We just had a show tonight. Tomorrow we're going to be playing in New York at the Ritz Theater. He had a very specific
yes, I know.
voice. And I wrote this song, Thinking of You, that I'd love if you can come down and play it with us. And at the Ritz. It was called the Ritz, and I said, "Oh my God, I'd love to, absolutely." Uh, and we did. We, in fact, no, I was living with someone, my girlfriend at the time. We went down to the Ritz and went to the sound check. I rehearsed a song called "Clowns on Velvet," and I think Steve Vai was.
Still,
I
yes.
didn't know him at the time, and he always had a great band of excellent musicians that could read really well, and he didn't play, but he sort of conducted it, and
This was an excellent brain.
yeah, he had an
What you think about
incredible,
his Frank Zappa?
eccentric,
It's a
uh,
universe.
super genius
Like
brain.
you.
Yeah, but different brain because he,
Different, yes.
he he could write things he couldn't play. You know, he heard things. He didn't like play it and then write it. He heard it and wrote it. It's quite different. It's an unusual.
And the text.
It's an unusual talent, but brilliant, nevertheless. And for music aficionados like yourself and myself and many people that know, We know that on a serious level, he's musically a super genius. Uh, for some other people, he's a comedic. The comedy kind of uh, overshadowed the brilliance of it. But he could write for symphony orchestra just by hearing it, and that's
So,
just a very unique, almost bizarre talent.
yeah, yeah. But
And he liked the comedy side of it. He liked the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
shtick, as we say in New York. The shtick is like, you know, poking fun or making fun or
Humor, yes.
bringing some humor into the music.
Humor means intelligence.
Yeah.
Very
Well,
smart.
he was super intelligent. He would have been a better president than Trump.
Of course. But tell me about Santana, Eric Clapton, Carlos Santana.
Well, Santana was, I, I guess I first met him when I was 19, and I was part of Return to Forever with Chick
Return to
Corea and
Forever.
Stanley
Yeah.
Clark, and Santana was a fan of the band. So he may have been in town at the same time in Houston, Texas, and maybe had a night off, and he came to see us, and then we invited him up on stage, and he jammed with us, and I said, "Wow, this is so cool," because I remember just a few years before, I was at the Fillmore East in New York going to see Santana shows, and I was a big fan. Those early records were great.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent.
Abraxas and first record, Abraxas, the third record, Caravanserai, they were all inspiring, uh, great, great music, but also made you thought provoking. There was imagery to the music. Uh, so then I think I jammed with him a couple more times live. Uh, and then somehow I got around to asking him if he liked to participate on Elegant Gypsy. And I wrote
And
a song for him to play called Midnight Tango.
I remember.
You know it?
Yes.
It's for sure.
It's your style.
It's my style, but the melody could suit him because a lot of my stuff was maybe technically too advanced for him in some ways. So this one I thought was perfect. So I flew out to his house in California. I showed him the piece, and he was like a student. He
Very
was trying to learn it, and it was so easy. But there was one part that required him to play with all four fingers, and the part is a little bit like you don't know a scale, you can't. So in the rock world, these guys don't play scales. They never use the pinky, and they never use the middle finger. They always use the first and the third.
just
Mainly 99% of the time. Watch them. Watch a rock player.
yeah.
Rock players don't use this and they don't use this when they play. It's always this and this.
Like, who is playing rock today?
Huh?
Who's playing rock today? Our rock.
Oh, I don't know.
Me either. But what is happening with this music?
Oh, let me finish the story.
Okay, sorry.
So he had a hard time with this part. And I said, Carlos, don't worry. I'll stay here as long as it takes to well, so you're comfortable. The next day we tried it again, and then I went back to New York, and I think he very was a little embarrassed and backed out of it. But then so I recorded it without him. Then when the record came out, he called me. I was still living with my parents, still. And I remember the phone call. He calls, he goes, "Ah, I just want to say, your record, Elegant Gypsy, is the most incredible thing I've ever heard. And my father and I are like biggest fans of this record. Please, I'm begging you, please let me play on the next one. I'm so sorry I didn't play on that album. Let me play it." Now the next one was Casino, and there was nothing really simple enough. Everything was. I didn't have a simple song,
Yes,
you know.
you're
Well,
complicated.
simpler. Let's say more something that he can grab. So it was only that reason, but it was in hindsight a mistake. I should have had something, made something for him, but I was really thinking forward thinking, in that period. So anyway, what's the music like today?
Yes, it's a big
The
problem for
music
me.
like today is
The
a
jazz,
disaster for the most part. I mean, I don't know
you say it.
which kind of music. I mean, what the kids like electronic music. It's tragedy.
In bed.
The cell phones changed our world tremendously. Why? We can't focus. It's hard to focus. When before the cell phone, before computers, not so long ago, when we went home, we went right to the stereo.
Yes.
When we got in the car, we went right to the cassette player or the 8 track. Now, when you get in the car, you go to your phone, you have to return a phone call or somebody's
Of
calling
course.
you. When you go home now, you don't go to the stereo, never. You go to the computer.
Yeah, you're
Now, I
right.
have
You're right.
musicians, some of which are playing with me tomorrow or tonight or tomorrow night here in where we're at.
I will be there.
And I remember we recorded a record, and instead of going into the control room to hear the playback, they would go in the hallway to check their phones and get on their computers with their feet up. And this is a tragedy because there's not great focus. Everybody's
No, it's
networking, and they could see who's trying to call them or trying to contact them, and you know, it's
it's
all
more.
about networking instead of focus. Now, the records we love from the '60s, they can't happen again.